Pauline. So my name is Philippa Sackett. As Pauline said, I am the co-coordinator of the Impact Forum, also with NMA, the NGO Management Association. And it's my great pleasure today to be facilitating this panel discussion. So let me take a moment just to introduce our three fantastic panelists. Very excited to have them on board today, and a great thank you in advance for their time to join us. So our first panelist is Grace Maingi. Grace is the Kenya Community Development Foundation's Executive Director. Her work at KCDF focuses on working with communities to enhance their resilience through sustainable development approaches and social justice. KCDF is a strong proponent for community philanthropy and the creation of an enabling environment in which citizens and civil society can flourish. A human rights lawyer by training, Grace has dedicated her professional life over the past 24 years to the nonprofit sector due to her belief in the need for equality and justice in society. So thank you, Grace, for being with us today. Our second panelist is Lilies Njanga. Lilies has worked in international development for over 20 years, with a specific focus on global early childhood development. She is with us today representing the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, where she is currently a program officer focused on East and Southern Africa. Lilies takes a strategic lead for Kenya and Tanzania, designing, monitoring, and providing technical support to grants throughout their project cycle. Prior to joining the Hilton Foundation, Lilies was the Africa Director at Malaria No More UK, and she has previously worked with the Children's Investment Fund Foundation and the Ecumenical Pharmaceutical Network. Thank you, Lilies. Our third panelist today is Henry Kilonzo. Henry is a public health and development professional and PhD holder who is currently working with Safaricom and the M-Pesa Foundation. He has a background in system strengthening, sustainable philanthropy, corporate social investment, and the measurement of social impact and strategic partnerships. And he has previously held roles across government, international NGOs, national NGOs, and donor agencies. At Safaricom, Henry leads the foundation's strategy, programs, resource mobilization, and operations. Thank you, Henry. I hope that all of the panelists will be able to come off camera if they are able to, so that we can also have the pleasure of seeing them. So we're going to start our discussion today by sharing organizational perspectives on the recent evolution in the aid funding landscape. As Pauline mentioned, we all know that on the global stage, the situation looks quite dire at present. In 2025, the US government dismantled USAID and froze almost all of its international assistance. Other traditionally significant donors, whether the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, etc., also recently announced notable aid reductions and/or significant shifts in their giving priorities. Overall, it's estimated that foreign aid in 2025 fell by about 25%, or $50 billion US. As major funders of social impact programs, within this context, we would like to hear from our panelists about what is actually happening within their organizations, including specifically whether they have felt any significant changes to their policies or priorities as a result of these global shifts. Lilies, if we could start with you, please. The Hilton Foundation is a US-based philanthropic organization with a long history and a large body of international programming. What is your perspective on the recent shifts in the global aid landscape, and how do you see this playing out at the Hilton Foundation?
Thank you very much, Philippa. And first of all, my apologies that I'm not on video. My apologies for that. Now, the new funding situation all around the world, I like to equate it more of when the world had to deal with COVID, and after COVID, we said it is our new normal. I want to say that this is the new normal because we do not expect a return of the past. We may have some things returned, but they will return in new forms. So this is a new era in the funding space. And maybe just to speak a little bit about the Hilton Foundation, I will speak with the bias of the area that I work in early childhood development, but the Hilton Foundation is more than that. We have a lot of other programs in water, on humanitarian and support of other areas, particularly in the US, on homelessness, on youth empowerment, and also a big portfolio in support of the work of the Catholic Sisters. So with the bias of the area that I work in, first is to say that the philanthropic space may not necessarily bridge the gap, but it may be catalytic, because if you look at the aid coming from philanthropy and looking at what aid, who has created the gap, you'll see that the gap has mainly been brought by funding coming from governments, which may not necessarily be matched by the philanthropic space, but it could be catalytic. How could it be catalytic? We see our support in working with governments, mainly plugging in areas that would help governments to, or would really propel public funding. We see a situation where some certain governments, one really did not have all this aid coming in within their budget cycles. So being able to support governments in ensuring that all is within the budget cycles, because then that gives a proper view of what is the gaps that are there. But in terms of the Hilton Foundation, what have we done or how have we looked at things given this new era? We have made an effort of working much more closely with other philanthropists and moving into similar geographies where we're able to take stock of the gaps and being able to identify what areas each of us could meet. And why this has helped us to leverage on our respective resources and ensure that there is no duplication of effort. In terms of our engagement with the partners or the grantees that we work in, we have provided flexibility through bridging grants, through extension of grant cycles, just to ensure that there is a continuity of implementation. And I'll be speaking about this maybe as we move on further, really encouraging our partners to align with government priorities so that we can ensure that the private and public funding are working in unison. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Lily. Yeah, really interesting. And I like that approach of seeing philanthropic funding as being catalytic, and great to hear that you're working closely with others as well. Grace, if we could turn to you now, please. The Kenya Community Development Foundation is a public charitable foundation that was established in 1997 to promote local philanthropy and to encourage the growth and promotion of organized giving within Kenya. Can you tell us, please, how has KCDF experienced the changes in the aid landscape over the past 18 months?
Thank you so much. As you rightly put it, KCDF being a community foundation, a lot of the resources that we get is either from individuals, from private sector, private foundations, or from governments as well, not only in Kenya, but other governments. So for us being a community foundation, one of the key tenets that we rely on is diversification of our funding. But we have seen a decline with regards to our funding. We were funded by USAID. We have been previously funded by the Netherlands government. And so we have seen, with regards to that particular portfolio, a decline. I would say that it wasn't an issue of if this was going to happen in terms of reduction of foreign aid. It was more of when and how fast. I think what we have seen is it's come a lot faster than people expected, but it was expected, even right from when KCDF was being founded just 29 years ago. The whole idea was, how can we rely more on local funding? How can we rely more on community philanthropy? And how can we build an ecosystem of organizations that are reliant and self-reliant and are able to generate their own resources? So for us, unfortunately, we did have to reduce certain programs. We have had to redirect some of our efforts to try and see how we can bridge that gap. But I think the important thing for us as practitioners is to ensure that we are not only agile at this time, but we're able to see what availability of resources, both cash and in kind, are within the communities that we work in, and how can we leverage on that. As Lilies has rightly put it, we're not going to go back. It's how can we now push through this new normal. But what that means is that closer engagement with communities and ensuring that our organizations and our programs are agile and being able to adapt to this particular situation. Thank you so much, Philippa.
Thank you, Grace. I'm sorry to hear that you've had to reduce some of your programming, but really appreciate your comments about the importance of agility, and especially seeing resources at community level. I think that's a really important point. And I think the resources, as you say, are there if we look for them. Henry, if we could hear from you now. So the Safaricom Foundation is obviously a Kenyan corporate foundation, born, I think, in 2003 out of Safaricom PLC's corporate social responsibility policy. Can you tell us, please, have the significant shifts on the global aid stage changed anything for you at Safaricom?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever we are. Allow me to present or to speak about both foundations. So the conversation I'm going to have is for both Safaricom and M-Pesa Foundation. Philippa, if that's okay. We have two foundations at Safaricom. That's Safaricom Foundation, founded in 2003, and M-Pesa Foundation, founded in 2010, which is funded by the M-Pesa Holding Company. Both foundations focus on the same areas: health, education, economic empowerment, and integrated water, environmental conservation, and livelihoods. And then we have humanitarian response. So to answer the question, the answer is yes and no. I start with the no. When we had the aid cut, both foundations were not affected because we get funding from we get funding from Safaricom Foundation, and we also get funding from the M-Pesa Foundation holding company. So we don't depend on the bilateral, aid flows globally. So we were cushioned against that shock. And then my yes concerns about the communities and the partners that we work with. Because our core strength is resources, engagement, and convening and technology. The organizations that we work with or that we fund were significantly affected. That meant we had to sit down with them and look at the different programs because we were leveraging on other donors' funding. Counties which were receiving resources from the donors, for example, we had to sit down with them and also look at how we're going to cushion the gap to ensure there was continuity in services provision. So for us, what has really changed is not the funding source, but definitely the perspective around funding. And also the learning that decisions can abruptly be made many, many thousands of kilometers away, which may affect local communities abruptly and significantly. And also learning for us as also Safaricom and M-Pesa Foundation that local philanthropy, local enterprises, local governments, and definitely our communities, we must increasingly become, or become more independent. We must have local ownership of the different resources, so that we can reduce the overdependence on external funding. So at both foundations, after that, what we are doing differently now, because we, as far as working with our strategic partners and communities involved, one is about focusing and emphasizing on sustainability rather than dependency. If you remove the dollar, if you remove the pound and all those currencies, what happens? And then partnerships that are not are not isolated, whereby we are building, or we are emphasizing on development of ecosystems, which are more sustainable than just focusing on projects. And then currently we are doing a lot of co-creation with the local communities for ownership, so that they understand their role and their contribution to the overall impact of what we are doing with them. So as my sisters Grace and Lilies have said, this was a wake-up call, and from where we sit, it's not going to be better, but it's going to make us stronger, make local organizations stronger, because we know scarcity definitely is the mother of invention. And communities, organizations will have to be more resilient, because the community priorities still prevail. Even if the funding is taken out, community priorities needs still prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for the clarification that you're speaking on behalf of two foundations. That's great. We get two perspectives in one. And really important point that even though your resources were effectively protected and you were able to use them to cushion some of your partners, it's a very good reminder that partnerships are not isolated, and that reverberations can cross the world and touch people from one side of the world to the other. I think that's something we need to keep in mind. So thank you all for those reflections on your current agencies. Obviously, as you know, the Impact Forum Kenya is a community of practice. We have over 100 members now, and the aim is to bring together Kenyan social impact actors. So that is nonprofits, civil society organizations, also social enterprises and other partners and practitioners. And the platform is specifically designed around sharing knowledge, resources, best practice about how to drive social impact, but also how to do some of those things you were just talking about: strengthen local leadership, build sustainable partnerships. At the Impact Forum, we believe, we hope, that even within the context of significant downturns in global aid funding, that there really are still opportunities to make progress and meaningful progress in all of these areas. As socially conscious funding organizations, we'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the potential opportunities that you see that could arise from these global aid cuts. I think you've started to touch on them a little bit, but it would just be interesting to talk about that in more detail. So Grace, perhaps we could start with you this time. You talked before about KCDF's focus on promoting community ownership of development processes. And it really sounds like localization is at the very heart of everything that you do. Do you see opportunities within the current crisis for social impact actors to perhaps finally make headway on the localization agenda? We've been talking about it for a long time, but is this going to be the impetus to really make some change, do you think?
Thanks, Philippa. So first, with the framing of the word localization, people view it and have different interpretations of it. Others prefer to use the phraseology of shifting power, which essentially means that communities are the ones driving the change, resourcing the change, and any actor who comes alongside it is more of enhancing rather than driving. So that for us is important as KCDF, because our whole philosophy is that communities are and should be at the center of all development. They should be the ones driving the development, and we see ourselves more as a facilitator to connect then the communities with private sector funding, with individual funding, with government funding, and bringing alongside that then any capacity strengthening that we can bring to the table. So in terms of the opportunity to strengthen the conversation around communities driving change, I think definitely this situation gives us that opportunity. As you've rightly put, greater impetus. We've seen a number of different funders, both private foundations, but also governments, having a desire to work more closely with actors that are where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So the issue comes in terms of how do we position ourselves as actors who are playing within that space, but also how do we build coalitions because we want to reduce competition for funding, and how can we put forward a very strong proposition with regards to the ability to scale the work that we're doing as local actors. So there are those opportunities that are there. I think the lobbying, the advocacy for funders still needs to happen so that funders can understand that those who especially are working at the local community level, if they're driving the change, they would not, probably fit into ideas around, what kind of log frames that, some funders would have. They would report differently. They would not probably fit into, risk profiles that funders would be comfortable with. So we see our role as KCDF as de-risking some of this work. So being a facilitator, being a community foundation, we de-risk because you'll find some funders are feeling that how will I work with a group that is working right at the community level? I still require some level of accountability. I still require certain issues to be addressed. And so there are those opportunities also for people who are like us in terms of being a facilitator to de-risk that work, but also for those who at the local level, really where the rubber hits the road, to then amplify the work that they're doing through forums such as this in terms of documenting impact to draw attention of funders. But like I say again, it's very important that the funders also see what their role is within this whole conversation and do not then want to put more burden on actors that are really at the local level. And how can we then still push the advocacy around Shift the Power, that then funders actually see their role as facilitative as well, and not putting extra burden on local communities and local actors around this issue. Thank you, Philippa.
Thank you, Grace. I like that repositioning and talking about shifting the power. I think that's a much more positive and constructive way to look at it. And, I'm sure you'd get a big wave of support from everybody in this discussion if there was any way to get some of our funders to move away from that view of log frames and some of those tools being the be-all and end-all of community impact. Henry, perhaps we can turn to you. We know that, as you said, Safaricom exists to find really sustainable projects and to really try to have a direct impact on the lives of communities in the areas where you work. Within the context of these large-scale aid reductions, do you see any concrete opportunities to further the drive for social impact?
Absolutely. There are opportunities. If I can give an example, currently, post-COVID, Grace is attending this forum from where she is, and I'm attending this forum from where I am, which is not in our mother countries, maybe because of technology. And when you look at currently what's happening globally, you can work from anywhere. And most of the innovations around technology and especially around communication are inventions from COVID. Meaning, when there is a strife, definitely people become more innovative, and people look every threat may turn, most of the threats may turn to be opportunities for people to innovate and do things better that they could not have done if the status quo was sustained. So we believe that as corporate foundations, that the challenge arising from the reduced donor funding or aid presents great opportunities for what Grace has talked about, shifting the power or localization or building organizations' local capacity for them to drive the agenda. I worked in an organization which was a donor organization, and we went to one of the potential implementing partners, and we wanted to implement a large-scale integrated water program. And that organization had presence in most of the counties. And when we presented what we wanted to do, the organization said, "Thank you, we don't need your money." And we were very, very happy because as a Kenyan, definitely I was happy. My other colleagues who came from other countries were not happy that a particular organization said no to funding. But I was happy because I saw an organization that was ready to drive an agenda, an organization that had pride that they are local, and they believe that a donor does not need to twist them to achieve what they want. So the opportunity here is looking at having strong organizations from the community level up that are able to drive conversations, that are able to influence change at different levels. The other opportunity is around opportunity. And I just said that innovation, scarcity definitely forces creativity. And we are going to see a lot of organizations, reinventing themselves, not to survive, but to drive the community impact that they are committed to. Because when organization, in times of abundance, and this is based on my experience, in times of abundance, there is a likelihood organizations focus on just activities, ticking boxes because resources are available. Because they know tomorrow we'll have the money, tomorrow we'll have the funding. But when there is a reduction in funding, there's a likelihood of organizations focusing on outcomes. And we know you get to outcomes when you are strengthening systems. So this is an opportunity now for the social impact players to shift, to bring in innovation so that there isn't just focus on activities, but focus on the outcomes. Data technology comes into play to play a critical role, especially around issues around accountability, telling the story, and also positioning. The other opportunity, number 3, is on what I can call cross-sector collaboration, where we have the public, we have the private, we have the community coming together. I can proudly here, and I'm using the word pride in the sense that on this conversation, I have one of us who is a panelist here whom we are collaborating. They bring resources, we also bring resources, and we celebrate. We may not be in the same sector, but we are bringing the resources to celebrate, the overall outcome. So no one is an island, and we need to develop that ecosystem, that collaboration, to ensure that we are able to, one, influence change, tell the story better, hold each other accountable, and especially empower communities to be more accountable and ask the right questions so that they don't see themselves as just beneficiaries, but they're seeing themselves as contributors to the overall outcome or impact that is expected. So there are opportunities that all this presents, but the most important is coming together, dropping our logos as organizations, focusing on what the community priority is, and seeing the contribution of each other, leveraging on what each one of us is good at. Maybe the community, because the communities understand their pain points better than all of us here. Could it be the government? Could it be the researchers? Could it be the civil society? each one of us has a contribution to make for the overall outcomes or results that we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you for the important reminder about necessity being the mother of all invention. And I'm sure we all remember COVID well. And as you say, we're all profiting from those improvements. And I really hope you're right that we are seeing organizations reinventing themselves to really drive community impact. I think system strengthening at the end of the day can also be much more cost effective. Collaboration, working together can be much more cost effective as well as having a much larger impact. Lilies, if we could please turn back to you now. The Hilton Foundation believes that partnerships have the power to really catalyze change, and that strategic alliances can cross-fertilize cutting-edge ideas, similar to what Henry was saying there. What do you think that the impact of the current aid funding cuts can or should be on the real development of sustainable partnerships between social impact actors?
Thank you, Philippa. And allow me to use a lot of our experiences really to respond to that. First is we look at government as our key partner, and that is where sustainable partnership really stems from, because the Hilton Foundation may cease to exist, hopefully not, and other like funders and partners, but the government will always be there. So I think I would encourage each of us to look at the government as that sustainable partner for all of us. And one of the things that we have really taken on is ensuring that we begin with understanding the government priorities, ensuring that all our partners, all those that receive our funding, really are working within government priorities. There are instances where we're able to fund government directly, but many instances we are not. But how do we ensure that our partners are working within government priorities? One of the opportunities in this kind of partnerships that we have seen in this recent past is governments are now much more, they have their doors open. They want to work more with partners such as ourselves and many others on this call. In a recent scenario where we were speaking with one of our focus geography government partners, the Ministry of Finance, who in most instances is not taken to be part of the delivery mechanisms, it was really on board and want to really support the programming by ensuring that the partners are working with them to ensure that they are codes, because they say we cannot budget for what we do not have on our systems. So what I'm saying is that kind of interest. So for us, working within government priorities with that upholding of government as the greatest partner is really important. We are also seeing, and I think I mentioned this earlier, where governments are much more keen to ensure that everything they have visibility of everything, of what is happening, and not in what in the past could have been seen as a negative perspective, but a very, very positive perspective. Another area of partnerships is one, us being an international funder or international partner, is moving a new dimension of locally led and talking of locally led funding. And one of the things that we have looked is how can we create partnerships with local funders. And of course, this gives away with who Henry was talking about in terms of partnership with on the call. And what we have really done with Safaricom and M-Pesa foundations is knowing that they have a better lead on the context. So we partner with them because they have a much better understanding of the context. They have much more convening power, given that they are based here where we are not. We actually do not have an office in Kenya. But more so, the partnership, this is the most important part of the partnership, is that we are together able to identify what does our strategy allow us to fund, what does the strategy allow them to fund, and then coming together for greater impact, going to the same geographies, so that then whatever we put in that county and whatever our partner puts in that county then can go further, because we are funding a certain aspect of community. I'm shying away from calling it community problem, but community activity, and having the other partner come along to do that. Another aspect of sustainable partnerships is coming together, as we've seen a new wave, and where the Hilton Foundation has been part of, where we have come together as various partners working on certain issues. So, for example, in early childhood development, we have a group of funders that really come together. How is that helpful? It enables us to go into a certain county or country, look at the priorities, and being able to know upfront where do each of us fit in, so that then we can be able to move together. And another aspect for us as the Hilton Foundation is, how do we use our network? How do we use our international visibility to link local partners with other funders? Because sometimes this may be an unusual problem, where we have a funder whose strategy allows them to move into this direction. We have a local implementer whose strategy has a point of convergence with the funder, but they don't have a point of meeting. So how can the Hilton Foundation support that kind of meeting of strategies? So that is another way that we are looking at sustainable partnerships, but also how we can bring actors together. And finally, is encouraging, and this is something that we do with our implementing partners. How can the partners, for example, in this room, in this webinar room, identify each other in the different areas that they are working in, and where there is relations, so that they can, even if they're not funded by the same funder, or they're not, but if they're working in the same area, say, for example, maternal health, how do they get to leverage, learn from each other, even in some instances, really do a joint kind of partner implementation? Yeah, so those are, I would say, some of the ways that the Hilton Foundation is looking at strategic partnerships, but also looking at the era that we're in as an opportunity to forge alliances that would have otherwise not been formed in the past. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lilies, and thank you to the three of you for those thoughts. I think, it's heartening to hear that even within crisis, there are opportunities. And you have given us a lot of food for thought about what those opportunities might be. We're coming close to the end of our panel discussion now, because we want to leave time for our members to ask questions and to engage with you all at the end. But maybe just one final question before we move into the Q&A. We want to ask you really just a simple question. What is your one piece of advice, your one suggestion that you might have for social impact actors about how they can really remain relevant, remain viable within the context of vastly reduced international funding? One piece of advice, one suggestion. Maybe Henry, maybe we could start with you this time, please.
Right. Thank you very much. In our work at Safaricom and the M-Pesa Foundations, the county governments the national governments play a critical role in what we do, because we are in health, and health is not our core, because we are a technology company, but we leverage on these partnerships to ensure that we are able to deliver our investment framework. We've seen a lot of, a catalytic effect in what we do at the county level. You do maybe a maternity, the county comes and does, the other hospital units, they hire staff and they bring other services that which could not have happened if, for example, Safaricom or M-Pesa foundations had not invested. So back to the question, the advice that I would give, and I start with some 2, 3, 4 questions. To the social impact investors, if donor funding disappeared today, will the communities that we serve still need us? If you removed the money factor from what we do, will the communities still need us? Will the governments that we always reach out to still value the work that we do? What about the local businesses? Will they value us? And then, what about the volunteers that are always asking us to join our organizations to give their work free? If we removed the funding, will they still have an interest in what we do? Now, from where I sit, if your answer to these questions is a yes, then the organization that you work with has a future. It means you are not following the dollar, you are following to solve a community need. So the driver here is not that there is money, but the driver here is there is an opportunity that I have identified as a social impact investor or a player, and I'm working with the community to resolve that. So the organizations that solve real community problems and that measure the impact are the ones that we will see them surviving beyond the current turmoil. Well, based on my experience, and I've written on this, if donors see value, if donors see innovation, if donors see a clear solution to an evident community need, they'll put in money. That means funding will always follow value. And then value itself will always follow impact. And that is based on my experience. So, to all of us here, both implementers, researchers, business leaders, civil society leaders, let's not waste this crisis that we are in terms of reduced aid, but let us use it as an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry, for the reminder. Real organizations that solve real problems will survive if the value is there. Lilies, perhaps if we could turn to you now. Do you have one suggestion, one piece of advice for the audience?
Yes, very quickly to say clarity of strategy. We think of branding more as a corporate identity, but I think we need to have clarity of strategy. We need to be known for something. We need to be clear that the government will call on this partner for this particular issue, that you're not that organization that changes depending on where the funding wave is going, that you'll always be known that you stand for this. And that goes without saying, also alignment with government priorities and affiliation to institutions and partners of influence. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Very clear. Clarity of strategy. I think that speaks to what Henry was saying as well. Be known for something and have your value. Last but definitely not least, Grace.
Thanks so much. So once you've gone through the tests that Henry has put in terms of if you pass that test, I would say my one advice would be diversification. You must diversify your funding sources. don't rely on just one funder or one funding source. So you must have a very healthy mix. And so my suggestion and my invitation is that there are resources out there around helping civil society to focus on financial resilience. And so look and tap into those resources. So as KCDF, we are part of the Financial Resilience Hub in East Africa. There are resources, free resources to help people. How do you grow your assets? How do you start asset building? How do you go into social enterprise? There are those free resources. Tap into those. We're also part of the Change the Game Academy, which is around local fundraising. How do you do that? Free resources again. Tap into those free resources that are available to help you raise money locally, but also to diversify. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to hear that there are all those resources out there, and I'm sure that we'll get the question soon about, perhaps if you could share the place to find some of those resources. I'm sure our members would be very very pleased to hear that. So please, thank you again for that formal part of the panel discussion. We really appreciate all of those reflections. You've given us a lot of food for thought, a lot of really interesting topics, and more importantly, a lot of thought about the opportunities that exist and continue to exist in a crisis for those that have real value on the ground. We want to move now into a process of Q&A to really open up the floor. We have almost 100 people in the audience online, and I know that many of them will have questions for you. So to facilitate that part of the discussion, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mutini, who should be online, who will kickstart that. And then all participants, you're welcome to put questions or comments in the chat, to raise your hand, and we will call on you and make sure that you have a chance to express your views and have your questions answered.
Philippa,
over to you, Mutini.
Sorry, Philippa, before Mutini comes in, I'm just going to alert you that Carlo is in the call with us. So maybe later on he might get an opportunity to say jumbo to all of us.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's Carlo from Olamide. And Carlo, if you would like to come in, please feel free to put your hand up, and we will make sure you have the floor as well. We would love to hear your perspectives. Mutini, over to you.
Good afternoon. All protocols observed. I appreciate our distinguished panelists, and thanks for putting us through a very interesting conversation. And at this point, I would like to request everybody we cross to the question and answer session. If you get a chance, raise your hand, put your comment on the chat box here. But I would like to start this conversation by throwing one question to Lilies, by asking, you're saying it's good to align ourselves with people of influence. And I'm very particular here with government as being an actor of influence. How have you managed to address the conversation of sometimes the government of the day might not like what you're trying to suggest to them. They may not be cooperative. How have you managed to navigate through that sort of a journey and being able to move your agenda along? And probably you could have some little comments to shed light on that, because I'm very sure a lot of actors here suffer that kind of a problem. My second question will go to the three panelists. And my question will be, I'm sure you guys have found a situation where some social actors are still in the old order. And as you have put it across to us, precisely that the ground has shifted, the new order. How have you guys struck a middle ground to move so that you don't leave certain people are on our old order and the need still exists on that particular line, but you still don't want to leave them because the need is so glaring and you need to move them forward? Your quick take before we allow everybody to come in. Thank you. Lilies.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm responding to where you're working on something that the government is not really agreeable. How does that come around with the point I mentioned about aligning with influence? First
Yes.
is to say, I think this is where you really need to really try and see what are the government and I'll keep saying this government and community priorities. Why would the government be opposing what you're doing? Is it that they don't exactly get it, understand it? Because if you're doing something for the good of community, there need to be something. So how I would position it, I think it's maybe helping to understand or seeing where you can really latch on in terms of a government priority that may actually, if you explain, then your work will be understood. But there is also some things, and when I spoke of institutions of influence, I was also thinking about regional bodies. There are a lot of treaties that our governments have signed up to, but a lot of times people are not aware, even sometimes people in government, assuming this was done by another ministry or signed by another ministry, but being able to say this was a government commitment, this was something that the government committed to. So if you're thinking about that there is a recommendation of a certain budget going to health, and there's been a certain treaty that the government has signed, even if it is a regional one, then you can fall back to. But it's really finding something that is within the constitution, the policies, the various policies, the various agendas, and sometimes you can even turn political and even go to the ruling government of the day and go to the manifesto. This is what you said you will do for the people. It's what we are actually supporting you to deliver this point that you said you will do for the people. So I think it is being sometimes political survey to a great extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilies. And my second take from either of the panelists.
Thank you. This is Henry. There is what we call second level thinking. Second level thinking is defined as we are all thinking the same, but it requires somebody to sit back and then think at the next level. Thinking differently, be more creative, so that all of us are not the same level, the second level thinking. And that's what all of us need to do in order so that we are not left behind. Lilies and Grace, all of us are focused on the community is at the center. So I'm not existing because there is money, but I'm existing because I have identified a community problem. What in the private sector we ask, what are you solving for? If you get that, then it means you will have to align to the thinking about resilience in these turbulent times. Then there are specific shifts that are critical that these organizations will need to make. And with this, you cannot force organizations. It's a leadership issue from the top management for leaders to really look at this is the challenge that we have, and we cannot just be left in the old school. We have to make specific and strategic shifts for us to continue having the communities benefit, or for us to continue to have the to transfer the benefit to the communities. So that's critical. The other is about adapting. There is the need to adapt with the norm, just the way all of us COVID came and we all adapted to the new norm. And when Lily started, she talked about it is the new norm. It is not going to change. We have to make it better ourselves. So it is called for organizations to wake up, adapt the second level thinking. And make specific shifts. Some may be painful, but at the end of the day is where is the community in all the conversations that will happen. It's either organizations will have to shift or they'll be left. They'll be left out. And I think for this one, it's a difficult conversation that has to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, can I jump in?
Please go ahead.
Yes. So if I understood your question correctly, when funding cut happens and then the need is still there, others are left behind, if I understood it in that manner. So
Yes.
for us, very practically, we were faced with that. There was a lot of work we were doing with 11 local development organizations in different parts of this country. And so the USAID cut really affected that work monumentally. What we had to do at the time was to see what resources did we have within the civil society space that then we could invite those partners to be able to tap into. So for instance, we had one of our friends, partner organizations was able to give them free training that would have costed, upwards of $3,000 per organization. So we tapped into that. They were able to get that resource, but then now also helping them in writing proposals, which not all were successful, to other funders for support. And so at times, there's very little that you can do. You don't have any other funding to come and plug that hole, but you have to look at what is available and how can you pivot and be able to do that. So we try to do that as much as possible. At times we're successful, at times we're not successful. And so again, it comes into how do we diversify? That then the reliance is not only on one particular funder, or even like if an organization is getting support from KCDF, we're not the only funder on the table or your only revenue source. That diversification cushions when issues like this come about. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Grace. I guess I move to the next aspect of turning our attention to the chat, and there is already a comment coming from many emerging organizations are deeply embedded in their communities but lack institutional history that larger NGOs have. What can they do to build credibility and trust with funders without having years of impact data? You can take it in an order, but I'm working with you, Grace, on this one.
Mudhini, maybe I can also just highlight that we've had hands raised, Anthony Sadala and Jacob Ngumi, so maybe they can go afterwards.
What I would propose is we do 2 questions and then 2 hands raised, and then we take it like that.
Okay.
So can you scroll another question which I can put it across? Then now we will let them so that
there's another question in the chat from Michael asking, what can CBOs do to have a successful ask of funds? Another question about the criteria that corporates and foundations use for partnerships, but lots of questions coming in the chat. And a comment about leveraging complementarity, diversification of resource pools, creating consortiums to champion local resource mobilization, focusing on the primary goal, however limited it be, and achieving that for which you stand. I think this is more of a comment. Remember, after the outbreak of COVID-19, the world was almost shattered into pieces, but with no time, we picked those pieces up and built a panel of solidarity and resistance. And definitely we should normalize this and move. Thank you for that comment from Abdullah. So the questions were criteria that corporates and foundations use for partnership. What can a CBO do to successfully ask funds? and what an emerging organization without a history and years of impact data can do to be recognized and build credibility.
Allow me to direct what criteria do the corporates and foundation use for partnerships to Henry, please. I would like you to respond to that. And the other earlier question, I will put it to Grace Maingi.
Thank
Grace,
you.
you can take the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. So in terms of an organization that doesn't have, 20, 30 years of impact, the most important thing is the social capital. Is there a footprint of the work you've been doing? So for instance, as KCDF, there are calls that we send out that require you only to have been registered for 2 years. But what you would find is that even by the time you got your registration, some of these organizations have been working in the community for even 5 years, 10 years. And so we look at that. What is the social capital? Do you have a track record? Are you trusted? And when it comes to a lot of funders who we deal with, for them, the issue of longevity, they're looking at trust first. Can they trust that you've been there, you have a track record, that you won't get the money and disappear? They're also looking at an issue of your programs are viable and they've been tested, even if you've had challenges, but the community have been engaged. And so they look at that long time period to be able to gauge that as well, because there's always concern about will the project be successful, or is it viable in itself, or will the money then be misappropriated? But for us as KCDF, the different calls that we have that maybe colleagues on the call have not been aware of. We recently closed our Young Environmentalist Innovation Challenge, which the call was for young organizations, young people to be able to receive support for their innovations around the environment. And so the other call that we have that a lot of people really question us about is our matching grant call, and that you only have to have been registered for 2 years. And so the reason why we say that is because we're requesting that as the community supports your work, then KCDF comes in to do the other bit of support. So if you have not been in existence for 2 years, the community won't have trust in you. The community won't even volunteer their time to work with you. And so the time period sometimes answers a different question. But they are funders who are looking to support nascent, emerging organizations. And so it's just understanding who to apply, where to apply, who to respond to, and what is the funder looking for. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Henry.
Thank you very much. Grace, allow me to add a point to your conversation, and it's about allies and having sponsors and organizations that can talk on your behalf when you are not there. Just for example, in employment, people took risks and gave us our first job when we never even had a lot of experience. So I'm thinking where I've seen that where small organizations get allies. And then those are the organizations that they go, oh, you're going to this place. There's this small organization there. They are doing a good job. Just go and see them. And after that, then that knowledge, somebody knows about these organizations. And because, in fundraising or resource mobilization, we say people give to people they know. So if they have an ally who has spoken about them, when it comes to now committing resources, they now use, for example, KCDF as the referee, that because they were referred by KCDF, then these are credible organizations. At M-Pesa and Safaricom Foundation, there are organizations that we funded, let's say $1 million US, but when another donor hears that, oh, Safaricom and M-Pesa are already funding X, they put even $2 million US. Why? It's because Safaricom is a trusted organization. So if you are able to partner with Safaricom, then you are a very good organization. On the partnership frame opportunities and how we do our partnership at Safaricom and M-Pesa Foundation. we have several ways. One is the reactive approach, where you send in a proposal to us. It is available on our websites, and then we look at it and we see the fit within our investment framework and we get back to you. The next is the proactive, where we, in our community work, in our community interaction, in forums, in conferences, when we are at the community level, we hear or see or read about a particular program, and we reach out to the organization. Because of that particular program or project which they're implementing, we come sit together and we see the opportunities to, if it's been successful, to scale that up, or we co-create to even make it better, and we're able to put in resources. We also advocate for co-funding, where an organization says, this is the amount of money that we have. Can you come and also partner with us? We put in more resources so that we can celebrate the whole. And then there is matched funding, where, for example, what we are doing with the Conrad Hilton is 1-for-1, 1 shilling for 1 shilling. But based on what you are good at, and also based on what we are good at, provided it fits within our investment framework and within your organization's framework, meaning we have a shared vision as two organizations. We also call for proposals. Recently, we called for currently we have a running call for proposals for maternal, newborn, and child health, and soon we are going to have in other 2 areas. So we also publish this to the public, and then based on a criteria and a selection committee that sits and looks through all these, we are able to identify the best innovation, the best methodology an organization proposes to address a community need. Definitely looking at the opportunities to leverage on technology. And then finally, definitely, Grace has talked about, they also look at the period which an organization has existed. We also look at organizations that have existed for not less than 2 years. So from the private sector, when we are looking at also partnerships, we've been doing a lot of, that's M-Pesa and Safaricom Foundation. When you look at our websites, you may see we've done a lot of philanthropic projects, short-term, touch and go, and especially Safaricom Foundation. M-Pesa Foundation, we do long-term integrated. But now there is a shift that all of us are working on, where we want to shift now from what we can call the feel-good, the philanthropic projects, to systems change. Because we know when projects will end, but systems will endure. And we cannot talk about outcomes if we do not have systems that endure. And that's the shift that you'll be seeing from us. And when you look at the future of philanthropy, that is the trajectory where most of the philanthropic organizations are shifting towards, about improving systems, strengthening systems for sustainability. Thank you.
Motini, there's another hand up from Joseph Yakubu. Over to you, Joseph.
Joseph, you feel free to raise your query.
All right, thank you very much. It has been an enlightening conversation. I would say this is quite timely and apt. Thank you to the panelists for sharing great insights. This is coming to us at the right time. My question is, I got interested when one of the panelists said that they are now shifting and looking at resources within the communities. And so what kind of resources could you give example? Are you looking at, what are the alternative resources? And how are you leveraging these resources? My second question is, how is social enterprise model also an answer to the challenge of funding that we are facing today? Because I think that over time, we have created so much dependence on funding coming, and what social impact was driven by funding that was just coming, and it will be coming based on cycles But social enterprise, on the other hand, is that, we're creating value also there, incorporating some profit motives also that are for the benefit of the people, that can also be injected into the social cause for which we're trying to create impact. So I would like to know the experience in Kenya, for example, with regards to social enterprise. Is it one alternative that we need to explore further? Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Henry. The question from Anthony was directed to you. Take it first. The two questions from Yakubu Joseph, I'll propose I take both of them. Grace, you take both of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The areas of focus for both Safaricom and M-Pesa foundations are in health. And in health, we focus on reproductive, maternal, newborn, and child health. We have medical camps. We focus on fistula. We focus on disability. And currently, we are focusing on the elderly to ensure that there is dignified aging in Kenya. And then in education, and also in health, we do a lot of infrastructure-related projects. Currently, we have an ongoing project in each of the 47 counties, either constructing a maternity or a newborn or both. Education, we are in scholarships, we are in infrastructure, that is building schools, science labs, libraries, and also ensuring schools have proper ablution blocks or water and sanitation. We're also providing scholarships. We have our academy called the M-Pesa Foundation Academy that provides scholarships or training and learning for bright children from economically disadvantaged backgrounds in Kenya. And we educate them up to the end until they finish university. And then we're also in integrated water conservation, environmental conservation, and livelihoods, where we protect endangered wildlife species and endangered water towers, and also linking that to economic empowerment, that water can be used for agribusiness. And then cross-cutting is humanitarian response. We are there, always there for Kenyans in times of distress, and also we integrate technology in our interventions. Do we work outside Kenya? The answer is no, unfortunately, because Safaricom is a Kenya company and we support our investments are within the borders. But the good news is we now have Safaricom Ethiopia, which is coming up very well, and we look forward to us having that multi-country engagement when the right time comes.
Thank you. Grace, before you take the floor, a general question from the two, I think Henry and Grace, is from Keith Muhati. What innovations are you seeing from local organizations that are particularly impressed funders recently? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. So I'll try to answer this quite quickly in the interest of time. So with regards to the question about, let me start with the last one, what innovations have impressed funders. Let me give an example. So this is our Young Environmentalist Innovation Challenge. We've done it now for 3 years. We're going into our 4th year, and we've decided to call it now the Young Innovators Challenge. So it's a call that we do. It's a public open call in Kenya. Any young person, 15 to 35 years, any young person leading an organization as well applies. So it's a competitive process. So from there, we pick then the top awardees. They get a grant, which then they can use. I see the question from Beatrice. They can use for their operations to expand to scale. So one innovation that really impressed us and other private sector funders that we had in the room was this young group of these young gentlemen have an AI-enabled tool that is able to detect deforestation. So it's able to detect any movement, any logging, any interference in the forest area, and then it sends a real-time alert to the Forest Service for them to intervene. So that innovation has done a couple of things. It's addressed an environmental issue, it has addressed a security issue, and it has addressed a community issue. And so for us, what we look for is those innovations that address multiple community issues. So if it creates jobs, if it addresses issues of the environment, if it also then is also able to increase education, so on and so forth. For us, that we've seen that is impressive for even the funders that we work. The other question around social enterprises. Let me give an example. We have a friend of ours, a partner, who they work in the education space. So they run education programs around scholarships, around food programs for children. Their social enterprise is a mobile toilet company. So they have a mobile toilet company that is profitable, provides these services in Kenya, and all the money that that company raises goes into the organization for their school feeding program, for their scholarship program. So that's an example of a social enterprise. Another partner of ours, they work in the area of girls and rescuing teenage mothers. They have the teenage mothers make bags, accessories that they sell. That then is the social enterprise for the work. So there are very many examples of social enterprises. Again, I invite people to the Weaving Resilience website that I provided. You'll find case studies of social enterprises within the East Africa region that you can leverage on. In terms of the local resources, we have a matching program. So what that means is that if you're a CBO and you have volunteers who are willing to help in that program, you have, for instance, parents who are willing to give in-kind contribution towards that work, we cost that, and also then we match it with resources that we have as KCDF. So that's how we tap into and look into community resources. Sorry, I might not have answered everything, but I hope that gives a perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to all panelists and everybody who has posed a question to us. I will hand over the session with the interest of time to Philippa so that she can guide on the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Muthini. And thank you. It was great to see all of the interest from our participants. I know that we still have a few hands up. I apologize if there's any disappointment if we haven't got to everybody. My colleague Pauline has been putting plenty of information in the chat, a recap of the key points of the discussion, lots of key messages coming out. This is the new normal, this situation. Necessity is the mother of all invention. Where is the community in all this? The importance, I think we've heard some reoccurring messages about the importance of diversification, of really showing impact, of having value at the community level. And good points also about, projects will end, but systems will endure. And that's where we have to be focusing our efforts. If you have any remaining questions, we will be taking them by email. So please do feel free to share comments, questions through to Pauline. She's put her email in the chat. She's the coordinator of the Impact Forum, and we will try to address them, if not in this, then in future sessions as well. But for now, a huge thank you to all three of our panelists. Thank you to Henry, to Grace, to Lilies. And I would like to hand over now to the Executive Director of NMA to close us out and for the final word. Over to you, Marco.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to all of you for sharing this information-heavy session. A big thank you to Grace, Lilies, and Henry for sharing your insights and for helping us through practical to think through practical pathways. Some words I noted is that we are actually on the brink of some kind of a toolkit for innovation. Based on the fact, as it has been mentioned, there is no way back because that's the new normal now. We have to deal with it, whether we like it or not. everybody has a contribution to make. A few other statements which came up, coming together, locally led. I think that's the heavy one. That's the biggest one, changing also for the international aid contribution to what's going on, diversification and cross-sector collaboration. And that is maybe something which is a little bit new in the sense that we are used to work in our thematic areas, but not necessarily across the board. So exchanging and debating ideas, learning from each other and identifying solutions together for management development challenges in the aid sector is at the heart of the Impact Forum, this community of practice, which is, the factor behind the webinar. And if you're working in Kenya or your organization has projects in Kenya, we invite you to sign up as a member so that you can take part in future sessions of interest, for instance, problem-solving clinics, or other peer learning sessions. Membership is free of charge. And for the colleagues from South Sudan who joined in today, we are about to launch community of practice also in South Sudan with the NGO Forum. So that should come up in the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. If, on the other hand, you're active in another country and would like to learn more about our community of practice approach, please email us and we will be happy to set up a short briefing call. And after this webinar, we will share the registration link together with the information on upcoming online courses, where you can get the 20% discount and the next in-person course in Nairobi, which is actually for CBOs and cooperatives organized jointly with Strathmore University. So thanks a lot again for joining us, and we very much look forward to staying connected. Cross-sector collaboration, I think, is the key word, and very much looking forward to have more discussions and debates and solutions coming up soon. Thank you very much, and back to you, Philippa.
That's it. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. And we hope to see you at our next events. Don't forget to reach out on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, by email as well, if you'd like more information about the Impact Forum. Goodbye for now. Have a good afternoon.